Hi, today we have Scott Hogan, real estate attorney and manager of Cascade Title with us today. Scott's going to talk to us about a new deed that's available here in the state of Washington. Scott, what can you tell us about this new deed that's available?
Sure, I'd be glad to. The new type of deed is called a transfer on death deed. It was allowed by the legislature in a new law passed just in June of 2014, so it's a relatively new form of deed. It allows people to transfer property to whomever they choose, but the transfer doesn't take effect until they pass away. The deed is recorded now, but it's revocable or revocable in the sense that if the grantor changes their mind, they can deed it to someone else or terminate the deed that they've already recorded. It's an effective new way for people to avoid probate, which is one of the reasons people like to do estate planning, which is something that's recommended for nearly everyone. You should consult an estate planning attorney or someone knowledgeable in estate planning and consider doing a transfer on death deed. It will allow you to transfer what is for most people one of the most valuable assets that they have, their home, without the need for probate. It has several advantages over ways that people have traditionally passed title to their home upon their death. First, I mentioned the probate aspect. This transfer on death deed would allow the property to transfer without probate. Also, it has advantages over other alternatives like a gift deed because you don't have to gift the property to someone today. You're in effect transferring the property to them when you pass away. For that reason, this new type of deed, the transfer on death deed, is going to be an effective tool. I would suggest that people, if they are refinancing or selling their property or buying new property, talk to a knowledgeable real estate professional about having such a deed drafted for them. It should give them peace of mind knowing that their home is going to be transferred to the person that they choose upon their death.
Scott, will this new deed, will it replace the need for a life estate deed?
It could replace the need for a life estate deed, Mark. In fact, it has several advantages over deeding the property to someone while retaining a life estate. Often at Cascade Title Company, we'll see a party transfer property to someone that they choose and retain a life estate, which essentially is ownership until the grantor passes away. Oftentimes, though, conditions change, and perhaps the home needs to be sold to pay for care for the elderly grantor. If they've granted the property to someone else, even though they've retained a life estate, there's another owner to the property now, and that other owner needs to be cooperative in selling the property to pay for the care that that senior person needs. Another problem with deeding to someone else is that if that grantee has liens or judgments against them, those become liens or judgments affecting the title to the property. And so again, if conditions change and the property needs to be sold or refinanced, that can create a problem for borrowing money or for selling that property, as those liens and encumbrances can become a problem, an obstacle to performing that type of sale or refinance transaction.
Well, it sounds like it's just a lot safer and simpler way of protecting people on their vesting and how they're passing it on to their heirs.
I agree. If I had to emphasize one aspect of this transfer on death deed that makes it the most desirable form in many situations for estate planning regarding the passing title to the house, it would be the revocable nature of the transfer on death deed. You can make a decision now, and if circumstances change, it's easy to terminate or to revoke that transfer on death deed to reflect the change of mind of the grantor.
Nice. Next question I have, I work with a lot of clients with reverse mortgages. Can you tell me a little bit how that's going to have an impact on them with a reverse mortgage, either at the time that they pass away or just even getting started with a reverse mortgage?
Now, a reverse mortgage is going to be an interesting situation in connection with the transfer on death deed. And you're more of an expert on reverse mortgages than I. But part of the plan regarding a reverse mortgage is that typically that mortgage needs to be paid off upon the passing of the borrower. And so in this situation, the title to the property is going to be transferred to whomever that grantor chooses. It can be a relative, a friend, or even a charity if they choose. But that party, the grantee of the transfer on death deed, is going to need to take care of the debt incurred by the grantor. And so it could be done in connection with a reverse mortgage. As long as that grantee is aware, you will have to repay the debt that's been taken out by the person that deeded it to you.
Right. I suspect one thing that people are going to ask is, what are the costs involved with this, with a transfer on death deed?
Right. The costs actually are quite minimal, and I'm talking about the deed itself. I'm not talking about the concept of a complete estate planning plan, which for most people is more desirable than just handling the house, but not the rest of their estate. So people should still consider seeing an estate planning attorney to have a will, a durable power of attorney, perhaps a community property agreement if they're a married person. But if they're worried only about passing title to the house, and that's all we're concerned about today, this transfer on death deed will accomplish that with the cost being very minimal. A few $100s to prepare the deed, and then a recording fee up at the courthouse, typically less than $100. And so really, for a few $100s, they're going to have peace of mind as far as what happens to my house when I pass away.
Right, right. And I think that's something that a lot of people are concerned with. Part of their legacy is oftentimes their house. Well, if you have other questions you'd like to ask Scott or get more information about the transfer on death deed, feel free to give him a call anytime, and Scott can walk you through questions that we maybe didn't cover here today. But I think, Scott, I just really appreciate you coming on and telling us about something that seems complicated, but it's really, this tool is going to make it much more simple and cost-effective for people to take care of.
No, I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks.